I'm Tom, and I've just not long finished work, in case you couldn't tell by my attire. And I was sort of thinking, running a bit late, right, a bit behind schedule, been very busy, and I was thinking I've got to film the driver's seat. I was thinking, oh, what can I talk about this week? You know, there's an endless list, which one do I want to go for? And I thought I'd go for I decided in the end I'd go for the boxing theme one. I'm a boxing theme channel mainly, so I thought I'd go for the boxing one. So I'm going to talk about, I just thought I'd talk about what I've learned from boxing. Everyone always says boxing is the greatest sport and it teaches you this, that and the other. And I thought I'd go for what I've actually learned in boxing. Now I am going to be toying around with my window a little bit just because it's really warm. It's really warm. So I'll be toying around with that. I might even, I'm quite ill, so I might have, some of my water from time to time. Hope you don't mind. You don't mind, do you? I'm sure you don't mind me having a couple of sips of water. I'm feeling a bit run down. So anyway, let's talk about it, right? What I've learned from boxing, and I think the first thing I learned from boxing that I didn't learn, right? Well, boxing is something I picked it up when I was 14, and I've played sports my whole life. I've done rugby since I was 8, maybe even younger. So I've always done sports, right? I'm no stranger to sports, and I've done running on the gym, things like that. I picked up boxing at 14. I did it with my brother. My brother took up boxing. I've done martial arts on and off for a while, and I did boxing since 14. My brother, who's done martial arts, took me with him. He took me down to a boxing gym with him, and he got into it. I thought I'd do it with him. Ignore the massive rugby ball in the back. So I thought I'd do it with him. And then that gym closed down. I didn't do it for a few years, and I picked it back up again a couple of years later. I went to a different gym. Then I didn't like that gym, so I stopped doing that and picked it back up a couple of years later. And at the gym I'm at now, where I really like it. So the point I'm trying to get at is I've done it on and off for 8 years, but very on and off. I've probably done it for 2 years in total, like not long. And I think the first thing I realised is boxing uses pain as a teacher, and the best way I can think of describing that, when you get punched in the face, you don't want to get punched in the face again. So you very quickly realise boxing's not just about punching or punching someone else, it's about not getting punched, the art of hitting and not getting hit. And it doesn't just, it's all good you saying that, but it uses the pain as a teacher, And what it learns, you go into boxing to fight, or, spar and stuff like that, and you stop saying, you go into boxing to spar, and you don't want to flinch, because when you flinch, if you're going to hit me and I start doing that, I don't know what's coming towards me now. I don't know where you're throwing or what you're throwing. Whereas if I'm looking at you, I might take a couple of punches on the face, but at least I know what's coming. I can try and avoid it and duck and barb and weave. And boxing uses the pain from getting punched in the face to teach you not to look away from getting punched in the face. You know what I mean? It uses pain in real time to show you that you need to be able to hit and not get hit. And that's kind of the whole concept of sparring, is put what you've learned into practice. And I think that's, as I say, pain as a teacher was the first thing I picked up from boxing initially, right off the bat. And everyone says they learn all these things from boxing. The first thing I learned was this pain, this hurts. Hitting the bag, after a while, your arms hurt, your shoulders hurt. Hitting the pads, your arms hurt, your shoulders hurt, everything hurts. That's your teacher. And then I think another thing I learned is just the discipline. Discipline in boxing isn't optional. If you're going to do boxing, you've got to be disciplined. I think more than most other sports, you put in the work or you get found out. Put in the work or you lose. It's that simple. If you don't put in the work, there's no teammates that can save you. There's no coach can get in there and fight the fight for you. If you don't put in the work, you're going to get found out. It's that simple. If you don't put in the work, you lose. There's no two ways around it. And I think that's another thing I realise is discipline with boxing isn't optional. It's a must. It's mandatory. And that's a good thing, because something like school, discipline's fairly optional to a certain extent. You can mess around and get away with it and not really turn up and skive and truant lessons and all of this. And nothing really happens. But In boxing, something does happen. You get really badly hurt and you'll lose the fight. So it's not an option. It's not something you can just toy with and think about and decide on if it's what you want to do, because maybe it's not what you want to do. No, discipline's absolutely not optional. It's mandatory. And I really liked that. I liked that I had to put in the work or I'm going to get beaten up in sparring. I've got to go for the runs or I'll be blowing a gasket by 20 minutes in. You know what I mean? I want to make sure I'm eating properly, recovering properly. If I go out and drink the night before a boxing session, I'm the one that pays for that. No one else pays for that. If I go out and get pissed up on the weekend and go to boxing hungover, my team don't get punished. You know what I mean? My coach doesn't care. I'm the one that gets beasted in training. I'm the one that feels it. That discipline isn't an option. You have to have it. More so than in other areas of life, I'd say. And another thing, kind of linked into that is that you can't hide from the failure, and I think this is a big one because, so far we've got pain as a teacher. I think when you can learn to use pain as a teacher, which in boxing you have to use pain as a teacher, and if you can extrapolate that into real life, if you can extrapolate using pain as a teacher into real life, that's huge, because now the pain you go through is just lessons. The pain you go through, that is really where losing becomes a lesson. Losing isn't quite so scary anymore. The pain you go through in life, losing someone, a loved one through death or a breakup in a relationship and a car crash, doesn't hurt so much. You learn to use that as a teacher quite quickly. And that's something I really value. And the discipline in every walk of life is huge. You need to be disciplined. And then onto that, know that you can't hide from the failure. There's no hiding from the failure. If you're losing, if you step into a boxing ring, and you start losing the fight, everyone sees that. At school you can pretend, you can say you're something you're not and make things up. You can't do that in boxing. If you're losing a fight, everyone sees it. It's on your record. There's no hiding from that. And that's important. Failure builds character. Failure builds character. You shouldn't shy away from failure. It builds you. It really builds you. It builds character. And that's important. And in boxing, you can't hide from the failure. If you're losing a fight, you're losing the fight. Everyone sees it. There's no lying about it. And I think that's really important. I think having the failure build your character, having the failure build your pressure, build pressure, the pressure build character is huge. It's a huge part of boxing, and it's a huge part of what makes boxing so good for me is that you can't hide from the failure. That's what makes you work hard. That's what makes you disciplined. That's what teaches you to suck up the pain, because otherwise you fail. And if you fail, everyone knows. And you don't want to fail. You don't want to be a failure and everyone to see you fail. You don't want that. So you work hard, and you really work hard, and you don't fail. Or if you do fail, there's no shame in that, because it's not that you failed because you went out and got drunk or you sacked off training. You failed because but you gave it all. You failed in spite of you trying your hardest, not because you didn't try your hardest. You tried your hardest and came up short, and there's no shame in that. You know what I mean? The comparison is a thief of joy, and there's no shame in losing because someone was better than you. There's no shame in that, but there is shame in losing because you didn't try hard enough and you let yourself down and you let your coach down. And the confidence you get from stepping in the ring is another thing I've learned. That confidence you get when you step in the ring with somebody that wants to take your head clean off. You're stepping in that ring for the same reason they're stepping in that ring. When you step in that ring, you want to take their head clean off. When they step in that ring, they want to take your head clean off. And there's no hiding from that. They want to take your head clean off. And you step in there anyway. You step in that ring knowing nothing about them, knowing that they might take your head clean off. You might lose the fight. You might get really badly hurt. But you step in there anyway, because you're confident enough to back yourself and believe in your ability. And that's a lesson that's huge in life, knowing that you might come up short. And there's nothing like coming up short is one thing. Coming up short because you got beaten up is a big thing to accept. And there's, the confidence you get when you're willing to step into a boxing ring where it's just you and the person across the ring who wants to take your head clean off. That's confidence. Suddenly, these job interviews aren't such a big thing. Suddenly, those exams you got to do doesn't matter so much. The confidence you get, the way you walk around school, the way you walk around the world, the way you walk around your workplace, when you've got that confidence of, I don't mind stepping in there with somebody who wants to fight me, who wants to really hurt me, that you get a different confidence, a different kind of way of approaching life. And I think that's massive. I think that's such a big part that's perhaps sometimes overlooked, is just how much confidence you get from knowing that you can defend yourself, knowing that you know how to defend yourself if times get tricky, but also knowing that you're not scared to do that. You're not scared to step in the ring and just put some belief in yourself that when you know you might lose. It's huge. You don't walk around the same, and you learn to control your emotions. Another thing you don't really learn at school is how to control your emotions, how to control things, emotional control, and that transfers when you get punched in the face and you want to go crazy and beat the guy up because he just walloped you in the face. That's not nice. Don't beat the guy up. He just smacked you in the face. Absolutely smacked you in the face. You want to beat him up. You want to hurt him because he's hurting you. And you want to go crazy. And sometimes you want to just let it all out and explode, but you don't. You get that emotional control. And that extrapolates when your teacher's shouting at you, when your boss is having a go at you, when you get in an argument with your girlfriend and your boyfriend, when you get in an argument with your parents or your brother or your sister, when you get in these arguments with your friends and your family and your boss and your partner or whoever it might be, that emotional control to not just fly off the hinge and snap and say things you don't mean, that extrapolates. That's something you learn, what boxing taught me, is that actually how I feel in the moment can't dictate how I act. What I want to do in the moment can't dictate what I do. What dictates what I do is me. I have to be able to control my emotions and control my feelings, because otherwise you're going to get found out. You're going to get caught with a punch. And you're going to end up walking out the ring, storming off, not coming back to boxing. You need to learn to control these emotions, and that's something that boxing taught me to do. Something that I've learned to do through boxing, and I'm very, very valuable. I now know how to do thanks to boxing, and school doesn't teach you these things, and it's a real shame. And look, I think you can have a degree, but you can still fold under pressure. You can have a degree, but you can still fold under pressure. Boxing teaches you not to fold under pressure. It teaches you that pain is a teacher and that discipline isn't optional, it's a necessity, and you can't hide from your failures. You need to accept them. You need to be confident in who you are and in your ability. You need to learn to control your emotions across all avenues of life. And that's what boxing taught me that school didn't, because you can have a degree and still fold under pressure because you didn't learn from your pain, or you weren't disciplined, or you hid from your failures, or you're not confident in yourself and your ability, or you can't control your emotions. Any one of those things can lead to you folding under pressure, regardless of your degree. Whereas I haven't got a degree, but I won't, because I can control myself under pressure thanks to boxing. That's what boxing taught me, that school really didn't teach me. It's lights out. Do you know what I mean? It's life. It's work hard, be switched on, be disciplined, or it's lights out. That's what boxing taught me. Failing in boxing is getting punched in the face. So you work hard to not fail. And that's something that I've learned more from boxing than I have every other avenue of life. That's what boxing taught me. I think that's what I wanted to talk about today. Is just what I've learned from boxing that I haven't learned from school, and things that I use, not just learned from boxing. You know, I learned how to box. Things I learned from boxing that I use in everyday life that I didn't learn in school. That's what I want to say, people. If you have anything you've learned from boxing or your sport in particular, let me know in the comment section down below, people. I look forward to talking about it. Make sure, like I say, if this resonated with you and you want to talk about anything, any topics you want me to talk about, leave it in the comments. I look forward to doing this again next week, people. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like, a comment, a subscribe. You know how all this stuff works, people. Peace.